Morning, everybody. We're up and running. My name is Karen Hyde. I'm your presiding member for today. I'll declare the meeting open at 9:34. And in doing so, I'd like to acknowledge that we are hosting the meeting on the traditional land of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation and joined by people from other lands around the state. We acknowledge the Aboriginal people as the traditional custodians of Western Australia, pay respect to their elders past and present, and the ongoing connection between people, land, waters and community. The meeting will be run in accordance with RDAP Standing Orders 2024 under the Planning and Development Assessment Panels Regulations 2011. The meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the RDAP website in accordance with Regulation 42A of those regulations. Members are reminded to announce their name and title prior to speaking. Panel members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them in considering the information before them. So, as well as myself, Karen Hyde, today, I have to my left panel member Eugene Coltas, Deputy Presiding Member, and further to my left, Mr. Robert Carr-Relse, Specialist Member, and on screen we have Councillor Chris Connaughton, Local Government DAP Member from the Shire of Three Springs. Item 2, apologies from Councillor Jenny Mutter, Local Government DAP Member from the Shire of Three Springs. Item 3 of our agenda, members on leave of absence, we have none. Item 4, noting of minutes, minutes of previous meeting are available on the DAP website. We move then to part B of our agenda and welcome officers, I think Simon Lancaster and Keith Woodward from the Shire. We have in the room with us presenters from Strike Energy, Crispin Collier, Stephen Lloyd and Renee Young from Element Advisory, and online we have Dylan Ray who's dealing with any bushfire questions. Before we move to that, I would like to ask if people have given due consideration to all the documentation contained in the agenda and part B. Could I see a show of hands, please, to indicate that you've given due consideration? Thank you. That's unanimous. Disclosure of interest at item 2. Did I receive any disclosures of interest? I haven't. Councillor Connaughton, was this matter considered at council?
It was.
Thank you. I'd therefore just like to acknowledge the standing declaration of interest for Councillor Connaughton as the meeting has been considered at council and that Councillor Connaughton acknowledges that in accordance with section 249 of the DAP Code of Conduct 24, he's declared that they've participated in that meeting, but under section 2.1.2 that you acknowledge you're not bound by any previous decisions or resolution of the local government and undertake to exercise independent judgment in relation to the matters before us today. You comfortable with that declaration?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. So having considered that, I've determined that there are no impartiality interests that would prevent Councillor Connaughton from participating or voting in relation to the DAP applications for this meeting. So with that, we will continue to item 3. We have a DAP application for a proposed power transmission line. And we've allowed 2 presentations today, both of which are limited to 3 minutes each. There have been no extensions granted. Once we've heard from these presenters, I'll invite panel members to ask any questions that they may have. And after that point, then I'll refer to the local government officers. So first of all, we have Mr. Crispin Collier from Strike Energy presenting.
Good morning, Madam Chair and panel. It's good to see you again. We were here a few months ago presenting the power station, the Strike Power Station, which is an 85 megawatt power station. This presentation is in connection with the transmission line between the power station and the Western Power Network, around 15 kilometres away. the objective of the line is to connect the power station to the grid so that we can sell energy into the Swiss when the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining. It's a gas-fired power station that uses the gas that is in Strike's 100% gas field underneath the power station. We've been working with the Shire and the farmers across which the line traverses to understand how and where they would like the line built. We believe those discussions have been successful. The Shire has suggested that we have a number of conditions to obtain the development approval. We've been in discussions with the Shire with those conditions, and I believe we've reached mutual agreement on all of them. I think this is a relatively simple project, so I'll probably use less than 3 minutes and hand over.
All right.
To Renee.
Thank you, Mr. Collier. We next have Renee Young from Element Advisory presenting. And did you have a PowerPoint, Renee?
I did, yes. And
to share.
If it's okay, good morning, members. I'll take most of the content of the PowerPoint as read and just skip to the condition changes.
Absolutely.
That we're requesting, if that's okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
As Crispin has mentioned, we have shared our requested condition changes with the Shire CEO and also Simon Lancaster prior to this meeting, and we understand they agree with the condition changes that we've put in the presentation. We've just got one further minor change, if we could ask for today, that's not represented, and I'll just, oh, sorry. Sorry. So the condition changes all relate to matters of bushfire. Oh, I've gone too far, sorry. So as you can see, the power line is variously affected by bushfire prone areas. As you may be aware that when the SPP 3.7 provisions changed in November this year, they no longer apply to non-habitable infrastructure. And therefore, we've requested some quite specific changes to the conditions so that a BMP under 3.7 is only prepared for the habitable buildings within the switchyard, but for the rest of the line to address the concerns of the Shire around fire safety risk, we're actually asking for a bushfire emergency management and operations plan. So we've explained the reasons why, which we'll take as read in our presentation, if that is okay. And then just skip to this wording. So what we've proposed, which we understand the Shire is in agreement with, is that condition 4 be changed to say that the bushfire management plan required by condition 4 be prepared only for the habitable buildings that are included in the development, which relates to the switchyard, which is only on one lot. And then we're proposing a new condition that will relate to the whole of the development, which is for a bushfire emergency management and operations plan. So rather than a plan that assesses bushfire risk under 3.7, this is a plan that addresses things such as personnel availability, contact details, property accessibility, the water supplies, all the practical things on the ground that the Shire is interested in terms of how Strike will assist in fighting fires when they're affecting the region, as well as the things that we implement on site, such as fire breaks and the like, to ensure that these properties are fire ready. We'd also request a minor change. Oh, actually, sorry. This is with the new condition wording. Rather than saying prior to the lodgement of a building permit application, we'd just like to change that to be the same as condition 4, being prior to the commencement of the development. Because in further discussions since we drafted and submitted this, we understand now from the City of Greater Geraldton, who looks after Three Springs building permits, that we don't actually need a building permit because there's an exemption for electricity infrastructure under the Building Act. So that wording just needs to be tweaked slightly because there won't be a building permit application for this infrastructure. And then the other tweak that we were asking for is just condition 5, which asks for the ongoing implementation of the BMP under 3.7 to also refer to that bushfire emergency management and operations plan that we're suggesting would be prepared. So we have shared all that wording with the Shire, and we understand that they're in agreement. And we fully support all the other conditions and ask that the DAP would please recommend or please resolve to approve the development. And if there are any questions, Stephen, Crispin and I are available, and we have Dylan Ray from Western Environmental online. He's our bushfire advisor.
Lovely, thank you, Ms Young. Let's refer to panel members then. It might be quite useful if we kept the presentation available just while we're asking questions. Thank you. Councillor Connaughton, I'll ask you first. Did you have any questions of the applicant, the presenters?
It seems fairly logical, and the power station itself already has a bushfire management plan, and seeing as the power line's really just a static structure, it seems sort of fairly a logical thing to do. So yeah, we have no objection.
Okay, did you have any questions that you'd like to put to anybody that's been presenting or the applicant?
No, I'm not, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Connaughton. To panel members, any questions of the applicant and their team?
Questions, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Kalese.
Yeah, I have some questions which relate to some of the comments from DBCA on native vegetation clearing not being required. So looking at the polls 30, 31, 43 and 87 to 89 in locations with tracks between vegetated areas, and the width of the tracks, just looking at Google Earth, looks to be about 10 metres wide. So the project description refers to a 30-metre wide corridor for the transmission line. So I'm just looking for some clarification as to what the intent is in those areas to construct the transmission line without any clearing.
Yes. So the corridor is ready for the access to poles to repair the line.
Mm-hmm.
That corridor then goes around the native vegetation.
Sorry, I think you might need to come up to the microphone just to answer the question.
The 30-metre access track doesn't go through the native vegetation, it goes around the native vegetation on the edge of the crops.
Okay. So there's no requirement for a 30-metre easement for the transmission line itself?
That's the 30-metre wide is around access, it's
Yes.
not around clearing. So
Okay.
the intention is that, and as we've said in the application, the precise siting of the poles needs to be agreed with the Shire as we get to the detailed design phase. And it's intended that most of them will be in existing fire breaks within the private property. There is only one pole that needs to be in a road reserve, which has vegetation, and that's the wide road reserve for Tompkins Road. All other road reserves, the line will span with the poles in the private property either side in fire breaks where there's no vegetation. So we don't anticipate that there's any clearing, but as we said in the response to DBCA in our referral responses, if there is needed, then we will have to do clearing permits at that time, or the relevant permits around disturbing native flora.
Sure, okay. Thanks for the answer. And in terms of the bushfire emergency management plan outside of the area where the habitable buildings are, would there be any need for, I mean, this is a question for your bushfire consultant, any need for any APZ or setback between the transmission poles and vegetation?
Don't believe so, but Dylan, you're online.
We'll just link Dylan into the conversation, and then he can take that question. You might need to repeat it.
Yes, that's okay.
Okay. Is he there?
Yep, he should
Okay.
be popping up.
Morning, panel members.
Morning, Mr. Ray. Did you hear Mr. Carelsa's question?
I did, yeah. So because there's no requirement under SPP 3.7 and the guidelines to undertake an assessment of the non-habitable infrastructure, there'll be no requirement for an asset protection zone per se. However, I suppose best practice would sort of state that, you include some form of hazard separation through whether that's through the Shire's fire break notice or just as a best practice guide, taking Western Power's sort of vegetation separation requirements, they generally do like a 3 metre buffer to power poles. So while it's an asset protection zone to achieve BAL 29 is not required, we can look through the preparation of that ops plan, some form of hazard separation, and work in conjunction with the Shire on that.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
Of the presenters. Could we just therefore, in response to that question, could we just go back to your presentation and just look at the list of things that you had in that operational plan and just see if there is reference to APZs, if that's where it needs to be?
Yes, it doesn't refer to that at the moment, so over the things we've listed, but
Right.
it says including but not limited to, but certainly you could add to
Okay.
that list.
Okay. All right, thank you.
But I would say that may be included through site bushfire preparedness. I would anticipate that that section will address fire breaks and APZs.
So we might not need to add it to this.
So I would defer to yourselves, but maybe not.
Okay, all right. I have a question regarding condition 8. You understand what's required by that in terms of repair, reinstatement, etc. of road infrastructure, should there be any damage?
This condition reflects the same condition that was applied to the power station approved in December. Strike has an existing agreement with the Shire around repair and reinstatement, and it's envisaged that a similar agreement will apply for this development.
Right, because there's no formal contributions plan as such in place. So this is an agreement that you already have. So this is encapsulated by that agreement.
We agree with the Shire for each activity that we have been doing, where we have an unusually high usage of the roads, that we take pictures of the roads with their engineers beforehand and afterwards, and then return the roads to the state that they were before if we have abused them, if they're worse than they were.
Okay, lovely. Thank you for that answer. Any other questions of the applicants and presenters? Okay. Thank you for that. It'd be nice to leave this up on screen if possible, whilst we're sharing. We might now refer to the officers. I think we have Simon Lancaster available, I think, who was the report writer, and we have the CEO, Mr. Keith Woodward. Councillor Connaughton, did you have any questions of the officers for the Shire?
No, I don't know.
Okay, thank you. To panel members in the room, did you have any questions of the officers?
Yes, just whether the officers have considered the presentation material and whether they agree with it.
Keith Woodward here, Shire 3 Springs. Yes, I have considered the material and yes, I agree with it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carelsa, did you have any questions of the Shire officers?
Yes. So firstly, the Responsible Authority report doesn't mention the setbacks from the proposed infrastructure to the boundaries, which is less than the development standard in the LPS. So I just wanted to get the Shire's view on that variation.
Yeah,
You want that one, Keith, or me?
no, Simon, that'll be great if you could respond.
Yeah, look, I guess in this instance, obviously setbacks are generally for buildings. In this case, it was felt that it was best to have it, I guess, with a reduced setback, because then that means it can go along existing fire breaks, avoid the need for clearance, and basically allow the farmers to continue operating their properties as they have in the past. So I guess least impact on vegetation and least impact on the landowners.
Yep. Okay, no worries. Thank you. And the second one is around condition 1, which is seeking a period of 5 years before substantial commencement. It's bit longer than usual, and wondering what the reasoning for that period is.
Well, the reason for that was that I guess I've done a couple of these, particularly relating to wind farms, where I guess during COVID times and other things, extensions were done. We had to come back to RDAP in some cases. It's felt that, look, I guess the difficulty with sometimes going through the economic regulator, if you're going into the power network, obtaining finance in uncertain times, getting contractors when it is quite difficult at the moment. It really it's a fairly reasonable amount of time to allow them rather than a more traditional 2 years.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
One is about advice note related to the contribution agreement. So just looking to understand, I guess this is in as an advice note rather than a condition, but what's been discussed or agreed, or what the intent of that contribution would be.
Which advice note specifically?
So it is advice note I. The applicant shall enter into a contribution agreement towards community social lighting infrastructure, etc.
Thank you. Maybe Mr. Lancaster or Mr. Woodward?
That's probably one Keith might want to touch on. I guess the Shire has had previous discussions with Strike, and they do have a particular area that they're looking for assistance with. If Keith wants to touch on that about the medical side of things.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. Panel, yes, we are seeking contribution from developers in regards to supporting the Shire Three Springs with our medical services. We expend hundreds of thousands of dollars every year on medical services, employing doctors who subsequently make up the emergency doctors at the hospital. In the absence of our doctors, we wouldn't have any emergency doctors at the hospital. So we were hoping to get contributions from developers to support us in regards to this. The reason why is that all of the ratepayers in Three Springs pay for these medical services. That has a symbiosis with the Three Springs Hospital, and then everyone who comes into Three Springs or works within Three Springs and all associated contractors pick up a direct benefit should they require emergency services at the hospital or doctor services that the Shire provides.
And just to assist Mr. Carelsa, who wasn't at the previous meeting where we considered the power station, Mr. Woodward, could you confirm the reason that this is an advice note rather than a condition is because there's no formal mechanism, no statutory mechanism for this at the moment, and therefore my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's an advice note because it's encouraging through informal processes this response.
Yeah, that is correct. There is no legislation to support this request, so it goes in as an advisory note. We certainly hope that in the future there will be legislation to support local governments in regards to community benefit schemes that I believe are fairly typical in the eastern states associated with power, and also in the northwest with mining of Western Australia. We're just thinking. Yeah, thank you.
Understood. That's part of my question. Thank you. The final one is related to condition 12, relating to the applicant advising CASA, air services, etc. I mean, this, in my view, I think should not necessarily be a condition, but would rather better sit as an advice note. So, curious as to why it's been included as a condition.
I guess pretty much these conditions and advice notes have been led by the previous DAP determination on the Strike power facility. So really it's just following that same template. Look, either way, if it's put in as an advice note or a condition, it's really just flagging the issue that's covered by a separate legislation so that there is no missing piece to the approval. But yeah, really it was just led by the previous precedent of the last DAP meeting.
All right, thank you. I have a question. I think we've dealt with condition 8. That question that arose earlier about the asset protection zone, did you, as at the Shire, have a view as to how that was potentially captured in the existing conditions, or did it need to be added to the new condition that you and the applicant have agreed? Or did it not need to be referenced at all because it's part and parcel of an understanding already. Either Mr. Lancaster or Mr. Woodward.
Simon, are you happy to respond?
Yeah, look, I guess as Keith touched on before, we've had some discussions between the council meeting and today's meeting when Strike formulated these alternatives, and we're fairly comfortable that it did address sort of the outcomes. We've been fairly mindful throughout. If this was exactly the same development but proposed by Western Power, we wouldn't even be asked for comment. It would just be proceeding. So, yeah, it's almost a double standard in the way that this proponent has had to do it. But that's the conditions that we were happy with in the end, that addressed the issues we were concerned about.
Okay, and in terms of asset protection zones for vegetation, you're comfortable that that would be part of just dealing with the location of the poles as part of that discussion?
Yeah.
Okay, doesn't need to be specifically referenced. Okay, thank you. And just to query, I did note as well, advice note F, that was an advice note on the previous approval for the power station. You're still comfortable to have advice note F as an advice note rather than as a condition?
Yes, and that it was really then linking back to a condition and saying, basically fleshing out what the terms of that condition was. So, yeah, comfortable with that.
All right, thank you. I have no further questions. Just check from panel members, any further questions before we move ahead with the item?
Sorry, just Simon, just getting back to the advice note on, I tend to agree that condition 12 should be an advice note, and that advice note I, rather than having the words shall, which is really as a condition, perhaps the wording is encouraged to enter into a community benefit. Your comment on that, please?
Yeah, well, certainly as Keith touched on, it's not something that can be dealt with through existing legislation, which is unfortunate for, I guess, rural and regional areas. So, yeah, it's as an advice note, certainly as an advice note. Whether the term shall is watered down a little bit is probably a fair enough comment.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. There being no further questions, let's move ahead to the item before us at 3.1. And in the first instance, can I seek a mover, please, for the recommendation in the RAR? Is there a mover, please? I must put my specs on so that I can see.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Mr. Coltaz moves it. Is there a seconder, please, for that as the primary motion? I'm Councillor Connaughton. Did you have your hand up?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Coltaz, would you like to speak as mover?
Yes, look, the application is fairly straightforward. The responsible authority report covers the issues appropriately. There's no objection to the application from any of the other authorities. Comments have been noted, and any issues associated have been incorporated in the approval conditions. And it's infrastructure that's well and truly required, and there's numerous examples of this and other energy transmission infrastructure being approved, and the issues such as bushfire and the main ones are bushfire and the clearing of native vegetation. The proponents in the Shire have worked through that and effectively made provision for retention of as much native vegetation as possible through having their access through the adjoining agricultural pursuits, and also with the bushfire management plan that address the issues in regard to habitable rooms or habitable structures. So I'm cognizant that the approval is required and am supporting it. In doing so, I'm moving some amendments.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Well, first of all, condition 4, I'm moving that that be changed to have the wording that's highlighted in red on the screen at the moment.
Yes. Do you want to do these en bloc?
I can do. Yes, all right. Condition 4 to be amended. A new condition, probably 5, which is shown as the proposed new condition. And
just in
however, with the
yes.
wording prior to the commencement of the development instead of prior to the lodgement of the permit.
Yes.
Building permit application.
Yes.
And the final one, there was a change to condition 5, if we can show that on the
Former
screen.
condition 5, that will
Former
be
condition 5 will be 6, and all further conditions renumbered. And condition 5, which is now 6, has the words "and bushfire emergency management and operation plan" inserted.
all right. So we'll just take this as an amending motion 1, moved by Mr. Coltas. I'm happy to second that. Did you wish to speak further on that amending motion?
Just that the the changes as requested by the proponents has been supported by the Shire of Three Springs, and therefore I'm moving that forward.
Thank you. And as seconder, I concur with Mr. Coltas's reason for that, and thank the Shire and applicant for working through that and reaching an agreement. I think it gives a level of certainty and finality to what's required by the previous conditions. So comfortable to support that. Please, could we just have a show of hands just on the amending motion for those 3 points that Mr. Coltas has raised? In favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Coltas.
Yes, I'm also moving that condition 12 be put in as an advice note, and the wording to be changed such as the applicant is to contact the Civil Aviation Authority, etc., rather than shall advise, or the applicant is to advise. Sorry, let's say the applicant is to advise the Civil Aviation Safety Authority, etc. So that's being moved to an advice note.
Okay, yes. Make that amendment 2. Again, I'm happy to second that. So did you wish to speak further on that?
No.
Okay. Nor do I. Those in favour of that amending motion, show of hands, please. That's unanimous as well. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Coltas.
Yes, in advice note I,
Yes.
I'm proposing the wording, the applicant is encouraged to enter into, rather than the word shall.
Thank you. So that's amending motion 3, moved by Mr. Coltas. Again, I'm happy to second that. Did you wish to speak further on it?
No, but that's it.
Okay. I believe that that's fine. As an advice note, it's really just that encouragement rather than there being any statutory weight behind it. So in terms of amending motion 3, can I have a show of hands? Those in favour? Thank you, that's unanimous. Any other amending motions, or are you happy with
that's it.
what
Thank
you
you
said? Okay, thank you. As seconder, Councillor Connaughton, would you like to speak to the motion?
Agree with the changes, and it's in synergy with the power station, so it's, we don't have any issues. So yeah, I'm all good.
Thank you very much. Any other speakers for the motion? Mr. Carelsa, did you wish to speak to the motion? Okay. I will briefly speak. I'm very comfortable that this has been thoroughly designed and assessed, and thank the officers and applicant for working together. The report is very clear, thank you, and succinct. I'm happy with the amendments that have been put forward and supported, because again, it does add that clarity and certainty to the conditions. And note that this is another string to the economic bow of the Shire, and I do wish them well with their community benefit scheme. It sounds as though that's a very important aspect of moving forward with diverse economic players. So wish you well with that. Nothing further from me. Did you wish to close, Mr. Coltaz?
No, I'll go to the vote.
All right. Those in favour of the primary as amended, please show of hands in favour. Unanimous. Thank you very much. So I will just go back now to our agenda. At item 4, we have no Form 2s for the Shire, and we have no Section 31s. At item 5, Part D of the agenda, other business, there's a few SAT applications for noting, but as we've said, none in the Shire of Three Springs. I therefore move to close the meeting. Thank everybody for their attendance, presentation and contributions today, and close the meeting at 10 minutes after 10 o'clock. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.